bones live? I, like many in this room, I'd imagine, grew up surrounded by family. My father's side of the family is Mormon, and my mother's side of the family is Catholic, so as you might imagine, I have a fairly large family. I grew up in the Bay Area, in San Mateo, where my mother, her 4 siblings, my cousins, and my grandparents lived. My grandparents, especially my grandmother, took care of me, my sister, and some of my cousins while my parents were at work. I continue to realize the ways that I am blessed by my family and childhood. But I know that receiving the wisdom of my elders was part of that blessing. I don't want to discount anything that I learned from my parents, but my grandmother taught me a particular brand of defiance. She was born in San Francisco in 1923. Her life was both difficult and privileged. She lived through a traumatic childhood, the Depression, world wars, and so much cultural change. She was countercultural in ways that she didn't realize. While many people thought of her as someone who would speak her mind to a fault, her major regrets in life were the ways that she didn't speak up. The arguments she shied away from, the festering wounds of words not spoken and truths not told. So when it came to her grandchildren, she wanted us to be bold. Even her disappointments in us were rooted in a firm belief in our greatness. Sometimes when I put my foot in my mouth with too much honesty or regret a truth I didn't speak, I remember who came before me. I remember that struggle for honesty, for the freedom of truth that my grandmother struggled with. She taught me bravery that later in life I know was a skill she learned and always struggled with. She struggled with telling the truths of her experience, and sometimes when she did, she was asked to be more silent, to be more polite. Sharing this would probably make her embarrassed if she were here now. I believe it honors her. Do her bones live? Jesus died about 2,000 years ago, and since that time, the wider church with the big C, everything that makes up Christianity, seems to have gone rather wayward. When I see churches or religious leaders mentioned or interviewed in the media, it's generally a story or a scandal or someone spouting beliefs and positions that I personally have a hard time pinning to the ministry of Jesus. Homophobic, literalistic, dualistic voices seem to dominate Christian messaging, to the degree that many of us shy away from words like religion and might be reluctant to share that we regularly show up and sing and pray and fellowship on Sundays in a church building, behavior that could probably be described as religious. We have trouble talking about it in spaces outside of this one. I'm not judging, and I'm not trying to be preachy, although I am literally preaching, because everything I'm saying is for me too. That word, religion, for so many, encapsulates so much of that 2,000-year history that we have a hard time getting behind, even if we're happy to talk about Jesus and or God. But we want folks to know that there are Christians who don't align themselves with bigots or Christian nationalists, and often that work of speaking up falls to us. My grandmother taught me to say hard things, because we want these bones to live, even if we don't want them to live the way they once did. This nation was founded in 1776, thereabouts. There was lots going on before and after. And some of us wonder, as this nation seems to be sliding into an oligarchy, and so many of our institutions are being stripped of their funding and purpose, as the executive branch veers toward dictatorship, as poorly trained militarized forces invade our streets and masked people snatch others away in unmarked vans and shoot those who might resist or protest. Some of us wonder if these bones can live. How can we speak up? How can we meet this moment? Ezekiel is written in exile in the late 500s BCE. The Hebrews living in a foreign land are struggling to maintain their culture and values under occupation. This whole thing they thought they were a part of seemed to be coming apart at the seams. Maybe you've had a moment like that. Maybe you've been there when a relationship needs to reimagine itself because of location or age or finances or something. Maybe you've been there when a country needs to reimagine itself because of location or age or finances or violence or something. Maybe you've been there when a church needs to reimagine itself because of location or age or finances or something. Many of us are reading Marianne Edgar Buddy's How We Learn to Be Brave during Lent this year. In her book, she talks about making decisions to stay or go. And so much of our world seems to be living in this liminal space. We see refugees in our own communities and from around the world choosing to leave violence, poverty, war, climate change, so many things. And we see people staying to rebuild a home after the devastation of war, choosing to stay and fight a war, choosing to stay to work on a struggling marriage, choosing to stay and fight against encroaching fascism, choosing to stay to fight a diagnosis, choosing to stay and work for what we know things can be. A number of years ago, this church decided to stay in this building, to give it new life and to live into the future, trusting that this place still has more to offer and we still have more to offer it. But we aren't quite at that promised land yet, right? Sometimes, even when we know we made the right decision, it involves a bit of struggle, a bit of compromise, a bit of not letting the perfect get in the way of the good. And so perhaps this church is metaphorically in its own Lenten season as we move toward that promised land. As Buddy says in her book, decisive moments are almost always preceded by seasons of preparation, and they are followed by an equally important season of alignment, in which we learn to live according to what the decisive moments revealed, clarified, or set in motion. How we prepare for decisive moments determines our ability to step up to them when they come, and how we live in light of our decisive moments is, in the end, what determines their significance. Our spiritual ancestors in this church, Mary Mail being a big one of them, have helped bring us here. All of who we are and have been as a community has brought us here. We're heading toward Jerusalem for the parade. It's just not quite next Sunday. The season of Lent is a contemplative season. Many of us give things up in order to focus on what might be holding us back from our higher selves, from deeper connection, from more joyful engagement. And the season of living smaller as a church so that we can deeply invest in our future, like a Lenten sacrifice, can be a bit difficult. But we know the work we're doing. The work that Jesus started setting up around 2,000 years ago, and that really his own ancestors began millennia before that. He gave us the foundation we needed when he lived his own ministry. He gave us the life that our bones needed. He taught his followers things that were radical in his time and that we seem to be the radicals carrying forward. Things like race, income, and gender shouldn't divide us or limit our roles in the world. Like ritual for ritual's sake without compassion and empathy does not serve God. Like God's extravagant love and preference for the poor and underserved. Like we shouldn't hoard wealth, but use it to serve community, the greater good, and glorify creation. Like the government doesn't own your soul. Like it's okay to be critical of our traditions and reanalyze them. Like all of us are God's, and that kingdom comes when we create it, when we roll up our sleeves and make the world better. Now, I don't want to get too ahead of the Easter and Palm Sunday narratives, but spoiler alert, Jesus met his moment. He showed up in Jerusalem, the center of power near him, to challenge that power and what it looked like. He spoke his truth, he threw no one else under the bus, and he met his moment. So I hope that all of us are using the remainder of this contemplative season to think about how we meet our moment. Personally, as a community, as a people. How we can learn to be brave in our context. This church is building housing, a big change that will undoubtedly change this place, not just physically, but change the character, the vibes, maybe the demographics. This week is another protest. There are actions taking place all the time. There is work happening here in the interfaith community to consider how we meet this moment, how we deal with the possibilities of ICE surges in our communities, how we can accompany marginalized members of our communities in this moment. And so the bones live. Because the message, the movement that began 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and that this church established in Santa Cruz in 1857 still matters. It's going to be different. In ways it won't be what Jesus expected. It won't be what Paul expected. It won't be what our church founders expected. It won't be what we expect. But it might be what the greater we needs. And so I know our ancestors have given us the tools. Our spiritual ancestors, our church ancestors, our national ancestors, our biological and family ancestors, they have given us what we needed, intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. And it's up to us to meet this moment. To parade into Jerusalem with full faith that nothing will be the same, that we can't know what's ahead, and yet that this is where history calls us. The subversive joy of Palm Sunday is coming. The beloved community of Holy Thursday is coming. The grief of Good Friday is coming. And resurrection comes too. Old bones can live. A community in exile can reform and create something new. The followers of Jesus will continue to meet and reimagine what that looks like and sounds like. This country and its citizens will reimagine what this place looks like and sounds like. Because we, like Jesus and our ancestors before us, are here to meet this moment. We are learning to be brave. May we take what we have been given, what we have learned, what we've experienced, and meet this moment. May we use our gifts, our skills, and be the balm that is needed. We are here to breathe new life into what those before us have given us. And when we meet this moment where history meets the past, where we honor our successes and learn from our failures, and create something new and lasting, that is resurrection. And we will get there. Amen.